Hey everyone, it's Julian from With Bravado, and you're watching 5 Questions, the show where I ask local bands and musicians 5 questions, and then we talk about stuff. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm joined by the very impressive Taylor of Good Bueno. Hey, thanks for being on.
Hey, thank you.
Hey, I want to get right to the questions because these videos tend to be a little bit long and I want to pick your brain. Question number 1, top things you've seen bands do right.
Okay, so it's definitely first impression for me.
Okay.
Which it could change over time, but if you're just a cool band and like you put on a good show, no matter what kind of music you're playing, what style, what genre, but if you just blow my mind, automatic check yes in my book. Okay. So.
And now, is this like performance or is this music style or?
So it doesn't have to be the style.
Okay.
It could be any genre. This is like if you blow my mind with your performance, like it doesn't have to be. If you miss a note, like it doesn't matter. If there's emotion put into your music, then that's awesome. That's what I love to see.
So some of our guests have already said, like that, like it's about like going to a show and really having that communicated to them.
Yeah.
And that's super cool. What does a band do when they do that? Like how does a band do that?
So it can be performance in the sense that if it evokes emotion into the listener, which could be through the lyrics or through the way the music shifts, Yeah. But for personally me, it could be both lyrically something that I connect to. If it's something that somebody relates to, that's definitely like obviously somebody will love that.
Yeah.
If they can relate to it. But if it's musically, if I'm a musician, which I am, and
you're a musician.
What?
Sometimes we have those on the show.
But if like somebody plays a cool guitar riff or there's a cool transition or and like it's just like, man, I've not heard that. That's really cool. If they're playing and they screw up, that's where I extend my gratitude because I've been there, and I'm like, that doesn't matter if if they do it right, then they do it right. It sounds like me rambling, but
No, it's okay. Like one of the things I remember, when I was talking to Dave Grohl. That didn't happen. But I remember him saying, yeah, he was on last week. But like I remember him saying like if you mess up, it's like there's an attitude towards messing up that like you can have that is disenchanting to the audience. Where it's like you mess up and you throw a fit and you go crazy or something like that. Like people don't go to see that stuff,
No, you have to shrug it off and like it go over your head and continue doing what you're doing.
Well, like you're playing a guitar with 6 strings, maybe
something's
more.
Something's gonna happen. String's gonna break.
I mean, there's something gonna happen. There's too much happening on stage for everything to go perfect.
Right. It also depends on how technical a band could be.
Yeah.
As if they're using so many different effects or instruments or whatever, they have to make sure that those are in check.
Yeah.
To limit the disappointments.
Well, I guess to like solve problems before they happen.
Right.
In a sense, like where, make sure that your pedal board's working. But sometimes, like we played a show and I showed up and like the amp was dead, and we had just practiced on it.
Yeah.
And I had a tube go out, and I was like,
there's like an amp, like genie that kind of like casts spells on the amp sometimes, but
Yeah, it's like the you thought you were going to have a flawless performance? No, we're going to destroy your equipment. Yeah, now it's time to go and find tubes that are hard to find, Well, what else do you think bands, you see bands, we've both been to a million shows, you've been in a bunch of like really good sounding bands, like what do bands do really, really right? They just knock a home run every time.
So it takes practice to become perfect, obviously. It's the fact that you're so comfortable playing that they write it off, like people write it off as like, and they're just so good, like
it looks easy, right?
Yeah, it looks super easy. Look like I could pick that up, go home. If if a song's so good that it makes a listener want to go home and write their own music or write something like that, that is a definite yes in my book.
I experience that all the time going to live shows, where it's like, wow, that band did something cool. It makes me like go home and play for the next 3 hours.
Right,
you know?
right. So I grew up, like we were talking earlier, I grew up learning local band songs because I was so inspired. It's the being inspired by shows you go to want to go write your own music.
Yeah, for me, like, my first Memphis show was on a Dead Machine.
Okay.
And I remember just, like, showing up and being like, well, I really don't know what to expect. I'm freshly back from college, and holy cow, on a Dead Machine. Like, that is still, like, one of my high water marks, you know, for, like, a band making it look easy. Like, I'm sure it wasn't, but, like...
Oh, yeah.
I went home and was like, I'm going to get better at guitar tonight.
Definitely. I'll tell you, one of the first bands, local bands, that really blew my mind was the Summers. Because I was so young, and it was very impressionable for me, because it was... I mean, of course, it's a pop-punk band, you know, it's very poppy, relatable lyrics, and I was just like, oh, I'm a boy that, you know... falls in love with girls too.
That's me.
That's me. And the thing is, it was so close to me because it was a local band. It was like I could go talk to them after. It wasn't like a go to the New Daisy or the Forum and like go see a show.
Right. 'Cause there is a disconnect there.
Right.
Which is appropriate, I guess, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But like, there is something about like going to a local show and being like, after the show, I'm super going to go and ask those guys about that.
Oh yeah.
You know.
It's so personable that you can go up to do that. That's what makes it for me for staying in the local scene. It's just that if you become personable and relatable and able to talk to people, then you're a good guy.
To piggyback off of that, bands that stay for other bands' shows.
That's definitely
something that I've seen bands do really right. Is you know, because like it's hard to talk to people when they're gone.
Right.
You know, I know that stuff happens. You know, and like people have to go to work or whatever.
It's also the fact that I say, but most of the audience is other musicians. For a lot of these local shows, so it all takes supporting each other, man.
Yeah, and that is interesting. I've looked out at a show one time and been like, oh, what's that person? It's that person. It's that. It was like, holy cow! You know, like I'm beginning to like wither. You know, because I'm like, oh goodness, they all know music.
Oh yeah,
they're all musicians. It's scary for me. Anything else that you can think of just off the top of your head?
Having just good gear, because I'm a gear guy.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. I don't know gear. He knows gear. Oh
my gosh, I could talk about guitar stuff all day long. And if you have like a matchless and like a vintage Gibson, and like, well, of course that's impressionable for me. Sometimes I gotta, you know, limit myself. I get too enveloped into gear. It's just like, what about the music, man?
Oh yeah. You spend so much time like formulating your tone that you haven't written a song in a few days or something like that.
I got two like different time signatures on these delays, but at the same time they're like a really washy verb. It's like, dude, that's the perfect tone.
Yeah, and I do that all the time. Well, let's move on to question 2 if that's okay with you. Okay, question 2. Top things you've seen bands do that could use improvement.
Okay. So definitely don't play a show if you feel like you are absolutely going to bomb it. Which I do feel like that sometimes, only because I feel like my music sucks. But if you...
Taylor White's very bad music. You should go and look at it on all the social media and give them thumbs up, and because his music's very good.
But if you really feel like you're not comfortable playing a show, if you've never played a show, like maybe go home and practice it until you feel like that you're able to put on the best that you think you can up to that point.
Yeah, I super can get on board with that too, because I've seen bands who look like they're barely surviving their own songs. And like, I spent $10 to go and watch you essentially practice.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Practicing at shows, nah.
No, like,
ain't gonna work.
I want to see you confident, you know, on stage. I mean, it's like, the boys of Good Bueno are always confident on stage. I really like seeing their performances, but like I want to see like a band that like isn't having to think about it anymore.
Right.
You know, they're just like doing what feels natural, because that looks super cool.
Right.
And I just, when I see a band that is like, hey, so this is a new song we haven't practiced it, so
Yeah, no, we just wrote it, 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
It's
like-
very disenchanting.
yeah, I feel like maybe there's not enough, like, maybe there's a school of thought where it's just like, just try stuff, dude. But like, it's not the school of thought that I necessarily gravitate towards.
Well, yeah. That also comes with different kinds of genres. Of
I guess so,
bands.
yeah.
I mean,
I can see like a really fun ska band being like, okay, we're gonna make a song right here, and like,
yeah.
and that could be like super duper fun because
Right.
like just the genre lends itself to just dumb, stupid fun,
I hate to say it, but I feel like the only genres that can do stuff like that would be like blues, very improv, and a Grateful Dead tribute band.
Okay.
But I only say that because my girlfriend's a Deadhead, and it's
Okay.
yeah.
I understand.
It's a tough life.
I understand. Anything else that bands could do to like? I'm completely on board with that. Yeah.
So as far as the performance goes, then yeah, practice your stuff and make it confident, and it won't be disenchanting to the listener.
Yeah.
But as far as show etiquette, I saw the other two people you've interviewed, and they're talking about definitely the bands that stay on the stage too long after
Yeah.
their set.
Well, like, and I've been one of those where it's like,
Oh yeah,
oops.
and I've been too. And I'm just like, I have this, this whole pedal board. I gotta plug it up to my effects loop too. I let the tubes warm up, man. Like.
Oh yeah, and you let them cool down too.
Oh, yeah.
After you're done,
Yeah.
You put it on standby.
It can't
for
be, like, moving,
at
like-
least 8 minutes.
Yeah. It's a process, okay? Like, well, if you have all that gear and you're opening, maybe you should rethink what's going on.
Yeah, and that is part of like, we had a band like a million years ago open for us, and they played for an hour and a half,
Oh yeah.
and that was like they were great for half an hour, and then like people were kind of done. The people left, understandably, and then we got on stage. And it was like, oh.
Yeah.
And like I know it's very rock and roll, but there's
There's-
an etiquette to this.
Oh, yeah.
That.
There's certain bands in Memphis, I'm not naming any names,
Yeah.
but that they expect they're going to play for that long. And that's going to be your bar bands. They're not necessarily like the local bands. But
Right. It's the bands that get regularly hired on for 3-4 hours or whatever it is,
Right. And when you get hired, or when not hired on, but when you get asked to play a local show that it's a 30-minute slot, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, pff, we'll just, we'll knock their socks off with, an
Yeah.
hour and a half. That's not how it works.
Right, yeah, because like it's a different thing. Like when you're playing for a place where like they're asking for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours of music, it's like a completely different type of audience.
Right.
It
It is. Another thing that we changed about our set that helped tremendously is playing to a click.
Oh, okay.
So it was just the drummer, Matt. We
Yeah.
added a click to him.
He's very good as well.
Well, depends on the person you ask, but
Matt's all right.
yeah. Anyway, it has helped literally tremendously because we would speed up, slow down. Depends. I mean, if you have a good drummer, then the stuff are minimal. But
Yeah.
for the sake of everybody in the band, it became way more coherent,
Okay.
together.
I've heard of this. Like, I've never played with a click or anything like that because I'm a bad musician. But like, I've heard of people playing with the click, and they preach it from the top row that like it really helps, even if there's not tracks going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's
No.
just the band is on.
It's
like
on
super
time.
on. It's not rubber banding or anything
Right,
like that.
right. It helps definitely with transitions too. I mean, starting off on the right foot anyway.
Yeah.
Like if you were to play a song, like your song starts off with a guitar intro that's intricate and like it's at a certain tempo, but you kind of play it like faster, and then when you slow it down, it's like everybody's like, "What the heck just happened?"
Yeah, because like you get excited or you get nervous and you play it, and like the rest of the band kicks in, and it's like, oh well, they've either got to jump on board or like I've always deferred to the drummer.
Right.
So like
right.
if I'm too fast, Tom always slows me down, or if I'm not fast enough, Tom knows to push me.
Yeah.
But like if I've set the whole thing up super bad, which I've done before.
Yeah.
It's like it's like watching something just like hit a wall. It's not super pretty.
We had a song that we played without a click, and then like the next show we had added the click. It was a world of a difference because it was a guitar intro, and then Matt would come in.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very noticeable tempo change. Like beforehand, it was like, okay.
Right.
It's like, all right, we got to fix this.
We've got to do something different.
Yeah.
So a lot of people can't play to a click. Have you noticed that? Like,
so it does take practice, I have to say.
It feels unnatural. Like if we're in studio, playing to a click feels weird. Like we're a band that has always just been like kind of messy and stuff, and like playing to a click feels like, oh, it's rushing me. It's not rushing me because it's the same every time.
Right.
Like I just feel rushed.
It definitely depends on the type of band you are too. If you're like a certified rock band, like drummer's all you need, and like if it doesn't change tempos, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But it does take practice from recording, and I've recorded several times. So like I guess it's a personal thing that I practice, but it does take a little bit to get used to it.
Well, like Tom has played to a click before and was really good at playing to a click. And then like CJ has no trouble. But then Kayla and I get into the studio and we're both kind of musical lay people. We're not, schooled musicians or anything like that. So like we're like, oh man, run that back. I gotta take another stab at that because it feels weird.
Yeah.
In Sleeping Seasons, we don't stack guitars super thick.
Yeah.
But with Bravado, it's like more. Just do more.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like an avalanche of guitars, and so like if those aren't on
time,
it just turns into this like mushy, awful,
definitely
terrible thing. So super understand. Click. Still working on it. Getting better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you've seen bands do that could use improvement? You mentioned studio. Any studio stuff?
So I saw Cody. He said definitely the come in prepared with
pre-pro and stuff like that. Yeah.
Definitely. If you know that a part is going to be iffy, then maybe ask ahead of time before doing 160 takes on it.
Yeah, especially if you're paying by the hour. I paid by the hour before, and that's not the right.
No, you should just go ahead and like block off the day.
Yeah.
Like it's to get stuff actually done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The studio is sometimes a weird place because like you hear everything kind of different.
Yes, it's definitely not as inspiring as where you would write music. If that you have like an inspiring place in your home,
right?
Or wherever you go to write music. It's definitely like, here's a screen, we got you live, go. And like if you're trying to be doing some improv in the studio, then it's not.
Yeah. Well, like the first time I ever recorded was a disaster because like I showed up to studio and I recorded the coolest lick ever. It was incredible. I actually checked the internet and it was the coolest thing ever.
Oh.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It's certified. It has the little check mark and everything. But then I realized that I wanted to be the kind of band that had a big sound, and I didn't know how to double that because I was just making stuff up. And that was, I've talked about on the show before where I've been sent home before, and I definitely got sent home. He was like, I can't take your money. You got to go home and get this right because you're just going to be here all day.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in trouble. So
it definitely also takes finding the right producer to work with because contrary to popular belief, like not every producer is going to be the one for your band or your sound.
Yeah. I've worked with 3, and it's very much a different kind of animal. Some of them have like a very attention to great detail, whereas like I might not be geared towards that much detailed thought.
Right.
I'm more of a big picture person. And some people know how to take a big picture and make it look pretty or whatever.
Right.
Right. And it is weird. Like, what are your suggestions for a band looking for a producer? Like, what are questions you ask a producer before you're paying for it?
Well, it starts with the search of a producer. Finding works that a producer has done that you agree with, or you think that not agree with, but
like
you think
it sounds good, or
it
whatever.
sounds good, and you think that it's going to fit your style, and it does take an honest decision to find out what works.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, there's a few different producers in Memphis that are vastly different from each other, and they're awesome producers, but it depends on what the sound you're going for. So
yeah, it is interesting that like Would you say that a producer affects the sound of the music almost as much as a band?
Yeah, I mean,
Especially if they're the engineer.
right,
Right.
if like Cody was saying in the other interview, if they ask, for changes to a song or their opinion, it depends on how much opinion you want them to have.
Right. And that has to do with communication,
Right.
and setting up expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like marriage counseling, but like it's like, when we went in, we said we want a producer and an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
and we were very clear about that. And so Cody had no problem telling us what he thought, and Cody's candid. He's nice, but he's candid, and he'll say, hey, this is not as good as this,
Mm-hmm.
or this needs to be different. Like, we need to figure something out here.
Yeah.
And so it was really helpful to have like good production.
I've heard a few from local bands that it's like the laptop recordings, and it was kind of during the time, like we said before, home studios were an actual like good thing. But if you were to record like a whole EP on Audacity on your computer with like a laptop mic and give that to a show, like sell it at a show or give it out, like people are going to.
I've bought a CD that sounded like that before.
I gave CDs with two vastly different songs that I had for my first band, and it was disaster. It was a disaster. Gave it out to a huge show, and I found many of them in the trash, and it was a little disheartening.
Yeah, there is nothing more disappointing to me than like going and hearing an awesome band. I know CDs are like becoming less ubiquitous and stuff like that, but people still ask for CDs, and so like you purchase the band's music, and it's not good.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know the band is great,
right,
but this recording is not.
I think there is a difference between recorded material and your actual performance, because you could blow my mind, like I was saying, with your performance, and I could care less about like musically what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to like your music to like the band.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Me too. Yeah. Well, let's move on if that's okay.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Question number 3. What does your songwriting process look like? I bet it looks like gear.
Yes. Speaking of home studios, I guess for a while now, Bueno has started writing with like a recording software.
Okay.
And trying to hash out ideas and stuff with like actually listening to what it could be.
Okay.
Recorded. Add stuff to it, take it out, but
Instead of like playing it and being like, yeah, that sounded super heavy or whatever.
But I guess to start off with, that Bueno's writing process is very cohesive, and like every single member has to say. It's not necessarily one person like, here's the whole song, now let's like add drums to this part that you think is good. It's more of like, I brought a riff to the table. It could be me or Michael. Like we brought a cool riff, and it's like, all right, well, Josh is like, well, what if I have this cool bass part on here? Or like,
it's very collaborative.
Right. Yeah. And
I like hearing bands that are like that, because it feels like I'm getting, more than one idea.
Right.
Sometimes that can be Sometimes that can be bad if it's too scatterbrained or harebrained or whatever.
Right. If you figure out that one person is like going to be the songwriter, or like that person is the best songwriter out of all the people,
or if it's like their project.
Right.
Sometimes you have like a band where it's like very much this person's brainchild, and everyone else is kind of a supplement to that.
Right. That definitely can play a difference. But Bueno started out as definitely a collaborative, like, well, we just got a whole bunch of like musicians that have been in very different bands, like just put it together. So
a super group.
Well, I would say we're a super local group, because
a super local group.
My brother always told me that the local scene is the same 20 people in just different bands. But which
that's interestingly true, kind of.
Yeah.
The Memphis music scene, like I remember thinking, it's huge.
It's really not.
It's not super big. Yeah. How long do you dwell on one thing before you move on and grow? Because sometimes you can get bogged down.
So for that, I would have to say, write always and all the time.
Yeah.
So keep on writing and keep on recording, like record on like home studio, or if you don't even have that, like your phone or whatever, which there's many of those phone recordings from Bueno or just anything. But write so much that most of it, I wouldn't say all of it, obviously, but most of it is bad.
Well, like just write until you can like cherry pick the good ideas.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, yeah. So when you go into the studio or when you're writing in a writing session or whatever, you have so many different ideas to pull back from.
Right.
That most songs that Bueno that we have written have been like mashups of different riffs that we've written or whatever.
Yeah, ours have sort of started to be a little bit like that too.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear someone else say like just keep writing.
Yeah, don't just like I'm just not gonna write for a while just to cure this writing block.
Mm-hmm.
But literally, even if it's like you think it's one of the worst things that you've ever done, but like somehow you want to keep it.
Yeah.
Keep it, definitely.
Like just
because it might just work for that one weird place in a song that you're like.
Or you might be able to twist it in a weird way.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like for me, like when I get super duper writer's block, I'll go to a show.
Mm-hmm.
And like that just inspires me,
Mm-hmm.
and like it moves me past sort of like if I go to a show where I feel moved emotionally, I can go home and just write for hours and hours and hours.
Mm-hmm.
Something about like not being at a show for a while like really drives me up.
Yeah, I think another thing to avoid is to make sure that you're not copying another band. Because we've totally done that as Good Bueno.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've realized that a riff is like, man, that is so close to this one band that we love or whatever.
Yeah.
Try to be as yourself as possible,
Mm-hmm.
which being yourself does take a whole bunch of inspiration. But if you listen to, for instance, like Zeppelin or like, and then you want to listen to Rihanna and like, these obviously don't go together, but like those influence how you write.
Yeah.
If you listen to that, or
Right.
like, it's everything that you listen to becomes what you want to write like.
Yeah, and like if you're not careful, you wind up like being that band that sounds like this.
Right.
So like, why should I listen to this?
Exactly.
When it's a derivative of a better thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be that band that sounds like Nirvana because that's already the gold standard for that sound, you know? It's
It
like,
also depends if you want to sell out or not, man, you know?
yeah.
But, I mean, I feel like I get the most enjoyment and most inspiration from writing what I want to write.
Yeah.
And not trying to, if I feel that I'm getting bogged down from the same idea that maybe one guy's pushing, it's like, man, then come out with something constructive to counter that. That's not just that thing just, you know, it's terrible.
Yeah. I know it is a weird thing. If you're a new band, question 5 is something I wanted to sort of like throw out there just so that new bands think, you know, when we were a new band, I was like, does anyone else feel this way? And, you know, and it's like everyone feels this way.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's like it's easy to sort of feel isolated because like hopefully one of the things that this channel will do is like expose, you know, hey, everyone kind of has these ways of different approaches to the same problems or whatever. And like for a new band, like, you know, I hope that it will help a new band to just hear like keep writing, don't get bogged down, don't be afraid of using your influences, but don't sound just like them.
Yeah.
You know, that's a dynamite advice
Right.
from our awesome guest, Taylor of Good Bueno. Well, you about ready to zap out of here?
I mean, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm zapping.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, it's quite painful. Still haven't found Cody from last episode, which is difficult. I put his picture on a milk carton though, so it helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be looking for that at lunch tomorrow.
Yes, that's the thing.
Elementary.
So, do you know how this works?
I think we're clapping.
Yeah. So
Okay.
So it's going to be like a 1, 2, 3 and clap.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So my rhythm's bad, so we'll try this.
Am I
Okay.
counting on 2 or 4?
We're gonna clap
Okay.
on the end of 3. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, clap. Ready?
Yep.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Wow, that was a good show, wasn't it? It was better than good. It was good bueno. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, do the like, share, and subscribe thing. It would really help me out, and it's going to help out the bands and musicians that we have on the show. Their information's in the description. I look forward to making another episode as soon as possible, but in the meantime, support your local music community, and I'll see you next time.